Could you explain what the vision and what the why behind Tacen creating an hDEX was?
When I started trading my own money, and then as well as to kind of integrate technologies for others, I noticed that, well, if I deposit some amount of money into an exchange, that is really not my money. So the saying goes, not your keys, not your money, right? When you also look at all these use items, there are millions and millions, if not billions of dollars of money lost annually from what they call exit scams. When a company receives a deposit from a customer and then just runs away with that deposit. If I were to deposit money into a bank, there's a lot of safeguard that prevents bank from just running away with your money. But we don't yet have that in crypto ecosystem, but we can build the services so that it's impossible to do.
Institutions really care about the taking custody of their own assets. The retail investor is trading on behalf of themselves. The institutional investor is trading on behalf of a bunch of investors. There is a lot of regulation, especially here in the US, around what you can and cannot do when investing other people's money. Our thesis here is that institutional traders are going to want to trade crypto like they trade all other asset classes. That being storing it in a regulated custodian and keeping it in that custodian when they're doing their trading. With institutions, they do all of their business through people they know, who they've developed relationships, long-term relationships with. The key for us going to market with a product like our hDEX is to make sure that we are fully integrating into those ecosystems, to make sure that if a fund wants to trade with Morgan Stanley, that Morgan Stanley can offer the asset that they want in the way that they want to trade it. And from a technology standpoint, to be able to address one of the key points that institutions care about, the custody, we had to look at a model where we can offer self-custody without any of the drawbacks that typical decentralized exchanges have, such as slow order books, an inability to net trades, things that couldn't really live up to the trading expectation of those customers.
After the order is properly sequenced and matched, the executed trades then gets pushed into a series of processors that's going to send the message out to our settlement system, or rather the community settlement system. And in order to expedite that sequence from order matching all the way to broadcast, we try to make the system as efficient as possible so that the time between order is being submitted until the order is matched and then the executed trade gets broadcasted out for the settlement data oracles, which are these validators of the trades. The total time we want that to happen is within less than a couple milliseconds. And the order matching engine itself can process updates of its order book within 200 microseconds or less.
Our exchange system, you can think of the order matching engine as kind of like the heart of the machine, right? And we make sure that's running as quickly as possible and is unimpeded. We do certain things such as we clone it, for example, so that one of them is the true matching engine. We actually have a copy of it running at the same time for all the outbound requests and a little bit of extra processing. So we go to extreme lengths to make sure that this thing is running as fast as possible. And then so the clone actually is the one that's updating the rest of the world and informing the rest of the world that what's happening, what's going on inside this belly of the beast.
Problem that a lot of the centralized exchanges have is just being able to log the user in and handle it properly so that the retail traders can actually buy and sell just like the institutional traders can. And so the way that we ensure it is by having a series of load balancers to ensure that all the requests that are coming in and the servers are evenly loaded so that not one particular endpoint is overextended.
So someone isn't getting booked up right to the very top of the order book and getting better price than everyone else.
That's right. So we want to make sure that everyone is playing by the consistent and fair rule.
Are there other players out there doing similar things, or?
There are a number of exchanges that look at this problem in different ways. We're seeing a lot of the decentralized exchanges really solve the custody issue. But they do have their downsides. They're expensive, they're slow, You can't trade assets from two different blockchains. There are also centralized exchanges which come with their own drawbacks. Having to put the assets into the exchange for them to custody is a huge risk that a lot of chief compliance officers don't want to deal with, because you have to remember, if you're not holding the keys, it's not really your crypto. You're just putting an IOU into a centralized entity. You have to remember that anytime you bring a third party or another node into a system, you have to calculate the risk associated to it. There could be a bad actor at any of these centralized exchanges. There could be a hack. In this case, you don't control any of that, or the risk associated to any of that.
So settlement data oracles are responsible for recording all the executed trades and verifying that those trades originated from individual traders that has submitted it. So there's an additional step of verification where the signature of the wallet that signed the request to be sent out has been kept all the way through. So we check for provenance, and we recheck for provenance so that no one is getting left out. And once the order is received and verified, then it gets recorded in the settlement data oracle for later dissemination of information when someone requests, hey, I want to make sure that I get my money out of the system. And the way that we accomplish it is by having an open source software that we're going to get it audited.
The settlement data oracles are meant to be, as she was saying, open source software that anyone can run, right? So, and settlement data oracles are involved in what's called the consensus protocol or consensus process. So it's not just one SDO that actually has to be involved in the settlement.
The way that we also incentivize settlement data oracles to not collude and produce incorrect result is by making sure that the settlement data oracle operators stake to operate and to handle the settlement.
The one thing that we haven't talked about in terms of the capabilities of our settlement system is that we can go cross-chain. And it's particularly interesting in the retail space. Let's take something that's really hot right now, NFTs. The Ethereum chain sees so much traffic because that's where all of the large investors are, that's where it started, and that's where a lot of the credible artists have been releasing. But you have Solana, which allows for very low minting fees, but there's no way today to take all of the investors in ETH and allow them easy access to bridge the gap between these two islands of NFTs. One of the ideas is to release a retail targeted exchange where we can really kind of bridge all of these islands together, and specifically the NFT space, to really demonstrate what the technology can do as we start to build up momentum towards doing an institutional launch. You have to keep in mind the value of bridging all of these little crypto islands is that we can become chain agnostic in the future, so that a holder of value on any chain can buy an asset on any chain without having to worry about doing all of the hops and making all of these taxable events and having to calculate all of this as they go. You can imagine a world in the future where a number of the traditional incumbents are using the Tacen hDEX backend to settle all of their crypto trades, where not only are they seeing intra exchange netting to see benefits of reducing trade prices, but now they can do inter-exchange netting as well.